Time to do some more basic maintenance on our Mercury Tracer LTS and probably get some bonus content while we're at it. Welcome back to the Auto Obsessive Garage. Chadwick with you again for another installment of Project Tracer rounds, which is our 1994 Mercury Tracer LTS. In this episode, guys, we're going to do some more basic routine maintenance, the stuff we need to do to get this car where it needs to be reliable as a daily. Everything goes according to plan until it's time to go get the vehicle smogged, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. That'll be at the end of the video. Before that though, we're gonna do some basic stuff today. Something you should always do when you're picking up any vehicle, no matter what kind of history you have. Unless it was just recently done, it's probably a safe bet that this stuff needs to be done as well. So, spark plugs and wires, we're gonna tackle that since the wires are no-name brand, they look pretty old, and the spark plugs, who knows what's in there, right? So we're gonna do that, cheap, easy, something we should always do. Also, new air filter, goes without saying, and an oil change. So real basic stuff, right? So I'll show you how to do those things on this car. And like I said, we have some more fun bonus content at the end. All right, let's get in the garage and get some work done. Time to do the no-name plug wires and whatever spark plugs are down in here, replace them with some quality NGKs. I love NGKs, especially for these Mazda engines. The BKR 6E 11s. The same thing you're going to run on any stock power Mazda BP engine, whether it be a 1.6 or a 1.8. So we're going to go ahead and put these in now after we pull these old guys out. Miatas are pretty small diameter spark plugs, so you're going to use a 5/8 inch socket with a little rubber gasket in there to remove them. So let's go ahead and pull these out of here. Okay, so they're not looking too old actually. The points are pretty good on them. As you can see, it's a Motorcraft, so a Ford Platinum, which is interesting. So it's a good spark plug. You know, I think they saw Ford and they assumed Ford Motorcraft engine. I'm sure the spark plug works fine on the car, but I'm gonna put something that's more specific for it, for the NGKs. We're gonna run those, but these are not in bad shape. So they look like they were done somewhat recently, but hey, I'm just gonna be completely sure with the car and replace everything. So let's get the rest of these guys out. And before I drop these new plugs in, call me old-fashioned, call me lame, but I'm gonna go ahead and check the gap. It's not a bad idea, even if you believe, or your cousin's cousin, forum moderator, blah, blah, blah. Whatever relationship tells you that they come pre-gapped for your car, might as well check, won't hurt anything. So get a nice little gapping tool like that. Super easy. Let's see what we're working with on this guy. Right on the money at 0.04 inches. Now these for Miatas can be 0.04 to 0.044 of an inch, and that's the right gap, so perfect. Next up we got plug wires. So I like to play this very safe. I like to remove one plug wire at a time and swap it out. That way I don't mess anything up. I love these NGK complete wire sets because they always come with the lead wire, and that's what's going to come off of your distributor. So he's the first one, so he's pretty easy to find. So let's go ahead and just replace him. Am I in the camera still? He kind of goes off camera a little bit and just plugs over here. You can't miss it, but he runs right into the middle of your distributor. So all right, new plugs and plug wires installed. Again, don't forget you have to hook up your PCV and your other breather hose over here before you think about powering your car back on. All right, time to get this air box opened up so we can replace that filter. Should just be a bunch of Phillips screws down there. Time to drop our new air filter in. Something that's kind of bothering me under the hood of this car is the fact that there's no wiring loom on this part of the battery. Looks like the main positive wire, and I know there's an aftermarket radio that was installed that's still there, so I just don't like how this looks. So I do want to carry on this factory loom, and I'll probably do it over here with the negative as well, just to make it look right. I think if we take this loom all the way up to here, it'll look a lot more stock under here. You want to have this bright red wire sticking out. So, little touch up there. I'm such a fan of these little things we can do to make a car look that much better. Let's see what size will work. Of course I've got a bag of different looms. Let's get our tracer off the ground. Perfect. Time to drop below the Mercury Tracer. God, I love this bumper treatment, this kind of grill finny type weird thing going on. You can't even see it really when the car is on the ground. You have to bend down to see it. It's such a cool design. You got the Mercury imprint right there. This is fantastic. But let's see some not fantastic. Oh boy, I kind of expected this, didn't we? Gearbox and oil pan are just covered. A lot of this thick stuff coming over the valve housing there with the transmission is certainly going to be due to that valve cover gasket, and especially that cam angle seal that was just pouring like a waterfall down the front of the engine. So yeah, we got a lot of cleaning. I'll clean it up a little bit under here. The car also has a rattle when it starts, and it sounds like it's coming from the catalytic converter area. So we're looking back there at this point. So what I'm going to do is, I don't even want to mess around with this until I get this nice and cleaned up here, but look at this. There's no rust under here. This is the beauty of 30-year-old California cars, right? Can you imagine seeing a stock catalytic converter on a car with this kind of mileage, 260,000, and being in that kind of condition? But yeah, you can see lots of greasy, grimy stuff here, all over the place down here. So we'll get in there and do that. I'll clean it up and then we'll do our oil change. But yeah, let's clean it up. Scrubbing time. Back under the Mercury Tracer again, and look at all that shiny aluminum, guys. I mean, it's not perfect. There's still some, grease and grime in some places, but it's looking a world better under here compared to what we were dealing with before. Also found out the catalytic converter heat shield was making the noise. That was the kind of dinging, pinging, metal reverberating sound when the car was running. So it actually was just starting to separate a very little bit on the heat shield back there. So I was able to crimp the top shield back down, and now it doesn't bounce off itself, so it's gonna be much quieter. We'll see when we actually start the car, but I think we're gonna be in a good spot. But here we are, nice and clean under here. So it is time to get under here and do the oil change. For the Tracer LTS, we're gonna be using my go-to Shell Rotilla T6, that's the 5W40. Love that in all my Miatas and everything, and this is essentially the same engine, so these higher mileage BP engines really like it. So we're gonna run that, and then a trusty old Wix filter, and that should be perfect for what we're wanting to do today. Time to get under the car and drain that old oil out. Pretty tight shooting with the camera under here, but you can see we are cleaned up a little bit on the transmission, and here's the engine oil pan. So there's our drain plug right at the end here. That's what we're gonna be getting loose, and if you look up there, that's our oil filter up in there, so we're gonna go ahead and take him out to replace him. But yeah, overall, a lot more cleaner under here, which makes life a lot easier to work on. A lot of shiny aluminum, gotta love that on a 30-year-old car. So let's get this drain plug out and go ahead and drain this old oil out. 19mm socket gets this bolt loose. Go ahead and just take it off by hand and try to get most of your oil into your drain pan. It's always an ideal thing to do. Yep. Pretty dark looking oil overall, so definitely due for a change. Awesome, we'll put some fresh stuff in there and make her happy. Go ahead and let that drain, and we can do that oil filter up in there as well. Getting the oil filter out is a little bit of a stretch. Not really a great filming opportunity, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off with my claw. I'll show you what tool I use. If you guys have seen my oil change videos before, you'll see that I use this kind of claw attachment. Basically just goes on a 3/8 inch ratchet, put a little extension on there, and I twist it, and it actually tightens on the oil filter. which is super cool, super efficient for taking off these oil filters that might be kind of stuck. So I'm gonna pull that out, reach it way up there, get it loose. This design's kind of crazy because that oil comes down, it'll come down my nice kind of clean oil pan, but we'll just clean that up after. Just the way that Mazda designed these, same with the Miata, just runs down the side of the engine block when you take it out. So let's go ahead and get my claw on there and swap out that filter. Once you get it loose enough with your claw, you can reach up there with your hand. There's a couple accessible points you can actually just spin this off. Place that into your oil change bucket and we are good with the filter off. Perfect. We'll let the engine continue draining, get those last drips of old oil out, and we'll put the drain plug back in, new oil filter in, and we will fill her up. So there we go, tighten our new filter on just by hand, no tools necessary. Just get that nice and torqued down, clean up any dribble underneath it, then come down here, drain plug, tighten to spec. Let's go ahead and put some oil in this thing. A 1.8 liter Mazda engine requires 4 quarts of oil, so we're gonna go ahead and let her drink. Going with our delicious Shell Rotella T6. Stuff is fantastic. Using a clean cloth, go ahead and check your oil level now. Yeah, and you should be full after adding 4 quarts. So got the Tracer to the smog station to go ahead and do that fun thing that we have to do here in California. And it decided to throw up its coolant all over the place. So no obvious leaks. All the coolant was coming right out of here, the overflow reservoir, which means it was boiling coolant. So why was it getting so hot? I did notice the fan wasn't on. So that fan should have been on when the temp started to creep up like that. This is the first time the car's ever gotten hot. So you gotta start looking at what controls your fan. And if you come down here, and I do apologize, it is atrociously difficult to get down in here, but you can see right there that broken sensor coming out of the thermostat housing area. That sensor is actually your fan switch. So, as you can see, it's completely broken off. Upon closer inspection, when I went to pull the other half off, this came completely off of the car, so that's good. Plastic will get brittle after high mileage, so I think this broke. And as you can see, the rest of the switch, where's the wire at? I disconnected some things so I have better access, but here you go. Here's the wire. So that what's good is the plug side's fine. It's just we need to replace that sensor, and hopefully that fixes everything. So to get some access, if you have the same thing where your fan isn't coming on, I'm assuming it's the same with a lot of cars that run the same setup, but you need to replace that fan switch sensor, and it's kind of expensive. It's like 25 bucks. I secured mine on Rock Auto, but they are not a super cheap sensor. So you got your O2 sensor that kind of runs over the top here, the line for it right here. So you can kind of move that out of the way, and you can relocate some other things. I disconnected this wire going to the cam angle sensor, and that gives you a little better access. There is this tiny little one here. This is your coolant temp sensor. It should just be a pull-off kind of, yep, just slides right off, and then you have better access down there. So let me get a wrench on that and pull that old sensor out. Hopefully she comes out okay. All right, I've extracted the old fan switch sensor there. You can see it's pretty crusty compared to the new one. We're gonna go ahead and put that on. It is supposed to have a rubber, you can see the rubber gasket failed, so that's another point. If that hadn't completely stopped and fell apart anyway, it was probably gonna leak there eventually, so here we go. Time to install the new one. I actually just slipped an 18mm long socket over it, and that worked pretty good, so I'm gonna do that for the other one. It actually fits over the plastic piece, so you can just install it that way. All right, I've got our new fan switch sensor in there. Zoom in, you can see it down there, that shiny piece of brass. So what we're gonna do now is pull the radiator cap off, top off the coolant, run the car up to operating temp, let it hit there for a while, just idling, and then hopefully we're gonna hear the fans turn on. That's gonna be the best thing ever. Then we'll burp the cooling system just in case we introduce some air, but more just to see if the fans are gonna work. So let's give it a test. a little while, but the fans have finally kicked on, or the fan has finally kicked on. You can see it kind of moving pretty good right there. You hear it, so that is awesome. Looks like our switch works, and this car should not overheat again. At the smog station, not only was coolant coming out, but fuel also, after I had just recently filled up. Here's why. I've got to show you guys the condition of this hose. This is the part you can pretty much see from underneath, all the cracks right there. You can see all the swelling and cracking, and that's where the fuel was leaking out. On the other end, it wasn't too much better. You can see some pretty solid cracks there too. That's a bad one. So there was definitely fuel coming out of this bad boy. Not a bad piece of rubber though, right? Nearly 30 years and 260,000 miles. So great piece of rubber. You did a great job while you're in there, but you weren't holding it anymore, so had to replace you.